So my number one film that to me really, sums up my appreciation for acting or a performance that to me speaks to what acting means to me and what the actors can do to elevate a film is Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Oh, Before Sunset on a Ship.
Yeah, exactly. There we
Great.
go. From 2003. Director Gore Verbinski, actors Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley. And the summary is: blacksmith Will Turner teams up with eccentric pirate Captain Jack Sparrow to save his love, the governor's daughter, from Jack's former pirate allies who are now undead. If it wasn't probably obvious to listeners, the performance that really resonates with me and that I'll be talking about is Johnny Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow. And,
Mhm.
to me, again, like I mentioned, it was around this time that I was starting to understand how actors can be artists and put into a film a major contribution just as much sometimes as a director or an editor. But I will say, when I was thinking back to putting together my list and thinking like who, when I was first getting into films, if someone were to say like who's a good actor, who would I say? And I would go to Depp. And this was because at the time, with me being a teenager, a lot of his movies were very, in rotation a lot amongst my age group. You got Edward Scissorhands, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Donnie Brasco, Sleepy Hollow. And he was different in each film. It wasn't like, again, I'm thinking back to like when I was a teenager, but yeah, okay, Tom Cruise, he gives the same performance in every movie. He's an he's a movie star. Harrison Ford, also not a lot of range there. And I wasn't seeing yet at this time like De Niro, Brando,
Mhm.
Pacino, Meryl Streep. Like these were not movies I was watching. I knew about those actors, right?
Mhm.
But Depp was the one who was in my face more, and I was seeing, wow, like Edward Scissorhands, like that's a totally different character than what he's doing in Donnie Brasco, which is totally different. So it was very obvious to me that an actor can really bring a lot of range, I guess,
Mhm.
into a role. So I had to include a Depp performance then as my number one, and why this one I think is really so impactful on me especially is he really does make this film, and it's not just his performance, it's the fact that he created this character basically out of whole cloth himself. I mean, yes, the writers, there was some input in there too, but the vision that they had for what this character originally was going to be was very different than what Depp ended up putting on screen, and that was what made the movie work for me. I mean, the movie is actually, I think, very brilliant around Depp. It's not just, it doesn't all just hinge on Depp. I think film's got a great script and great effects, and Jeffrey Rush is also good in it. But the fact that Johnny Depp, were thought that this is what to him a pirate would be. Apparently when he was figuring out his character after he gotten cast into this film, which at the time was a coup. Like he wasn't like a blockbuster actor. It's kind of hard to think back to this time before he sort of, I guess,
Mhm.
ran his career into the ground. I will say a little bit based on his decision to go after blockbusters. Because of this movie. But
Yeah.
he locked himself in a sauna for days to experience heat stroke, to think of like, what would that be like to be on a ship? He did a bunch of research in pirates and realized they were treated like rock stars. So he think, okay, well, I'll just model myself off of a rock star, and stole a bunch of mannerisms of Keith Richards. He came up with the idea for the braids, and he had this one concept that he wanted to have his nose fall off in every scene. And they were like, no, 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 that's too far. So thank God they did that, because that sounds ridiculous. But these were his contributions. This wasn't just someone showing up to set. Okay, here's a script. Here's your costume. This is the director telling you and the writers this is what the character is. Depp created that. And this was a very clear example to me, especially once I read more about the production history after I saw this film, of like, wow, like actors can do this. Like they can take something on a page that basically just the very cookie cutter, Errol Flynn type knockoff role, and transform this into, I think, one of the most well known and famous characters in film in the last 20 years, out of whole
Mhm.
cloth. Like that was Depp. And I think he created this franchise because of his performance. So to me, and I remember even seeing this film, when it came out, it was another one of the Disney, they had done Country Bears, and it's like, okay, another movie based on a theme park. This is going to be kind of dumb. I love Johnny Depp, but okay. And I even saw it like 4 days after it came out. It wasn't even opening night. And it was only because I heard it was that good. And I remember sitting in the theater with my roommate at the time, just being like bowled over how incredible this movie was, and really like being like, wow, like Johnny Depp, like I didn't even think you had this in you. You brought all these great performances over the last 10 years, but where did this come from? This is so out of left field. And only I think a real actor, could bring that to the performance. So I had to settle for a Depp, which, I know, again, his career has progressed in ways that I don't think he's a great actor anymore, and he's got a lot of other legal problems and financial problems, etc. But this film was that important to me, and thinking back of like being like, wow, like an actor can be an equal part of the putting together the what makes the film, as a director, as a writer, etc.
And to do all of that in a blockbuster setup, which I think is even harder,
That's
right?
true.
Because there have been many collaborations where actors have come in and, kind of really, like you said, constructed or created a part and the entire movie out of not a lot. I mean, the last movie, for example, it's a true collaboration between Linklater, Delpy, and Ethan Hawke, right? So they're involved in every aspect of the movie, but it's a much different scope and scale as opposed to a huge movie like Pirates, which has so much writing on it, the money and such. So yeah, to me, like, I give you even more props to him that he was able to do that, and also props to the director to allow, I guess, him to do that
Right.
in the construct of a large giant blockbuster movie, which are notorious for essentially swallowing performances. And this is almost the opposite, that the performance and the actor is driving everything else around them, which doesn't happen very often.
That's true.
Yeah, Depp, I don't have that kind of relationship with him the way you do, because I didn't watch a lot of his stuff growing up. So, I've seen stuff, before, or I would say more after. And
the Mordecai era. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that.
I know. I haven't either. That was just a joke, though. But yeah, his later performances are not like his 90s stuff was.
But I guess after watching this and, going back and seeing Scissorhands and such, like, to me, he's always been the guy with pounds and pounds of makeup. Like, I actually can't remember a movie of his which has him playing like a normal human being, other than Ed Wood, which was so great to watch. You had on the list last year, I think. So I think I have some homework to do to really catch up with his filmography and appreciate him and his whole journey. But that aside, this movie is brilliant and he's great in it. I know you and we've talked about this off mic as well, about kind of how this movie came to be and such. So yeah, was happy to revisit it. It's such a fun ride, and he's great. And he's doing a lot of things, a lot of choices that are bold choices, but they're all rooted in character. I think that's the thing to underline. Like, it's not a vanity project. At least it wasn't back then. Over time, it kind of became that I'm just going to, put these extra ticks on, or this extra makeup job, or whatever, regardless of who the person is, the character is. Here, it sort of feels very true. It almost feels like, like what a company of actors would put on, on this giant scale, which is amazing. So yeah, happy to see on the list, and I was not surprised this would be number one.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you do mention, right, like the last film we talked about, Before Sunset, did, obviously the actors were very collaborative. To me, just as a college student, like, I just wasn't like that, this was the movie to me that really changed my opinion on acting. As much as Mulholland Drive and as much as Step Brothers, like, this is really the one in Depp's performance. So as weird as Depp is now, I still I still think he put some great performances in the beginning of his career.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's probably one in that pantheon of sort of movie star actors.
Yeah. No,
there are not that many in that, but he's in it, I think.
No, totally. I think that's a good distinction to make, whether he's both a movie star and also a very good actor, right? He's not just playing up his persona and being in movies. And there's a big, art to that too. I'm not knocking movie stars. That's something we need too.
Yeah.
But to do both is something very rare. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.